Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I am back with some more ancient lore. Today we are diving back into the Kybalion. This is the letter from the Three Initiates, or the book from the Three Initiates. It is teaching us more about the mechanics of the universe and how manifestation actually works, and today we are going to be diving back into those topics. I read this, then we discuss it, and then I read some more. We're going to do 2 chapters today. It will be 9 and 10, and if you're interested in that, then you should tag along. It is highly recommended, however, that you begin at the beginning, not because I want the views, even though that is true, but because it is easier to keep up if you understand where the foundation lies. There are things that I might say that seem a little bit confusing. If so, let me know in the comments down below and I will attempt to clarify, but most of them are defined in the various playlists that are linked in this corner up here. I suggest at least watching the 8 Laws of Creation, if nothing else. With all that being said, we are going to dive into the Kybalion and read about vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. The Kybalion. The third great Hermetic principle, the principle of vibration, embodies the truth that motion is manifest in everything in the universe, that nothing is at rest, that everything moves, vibrates, and circles. This Hermetic principle was recognized by some of the early Greek philosophers who embodied it in their systems. But then, for centuries, it was lost. It was lost sight of by the thinkers outside of the Hermetic rings. But in the 19th century, physical science rediscovered the truth, and the 20th century scientific discoveries have added additional proof of the correctness and truth of this centuries-old Hermetic doctrine. The Hermetic teachings are that not only is everything in constant movement and vibration, but that the differences between the various manifestations of the universal power are due entirely to the varying rate and mode of vibrations. Not only this, but that even the all in itself manifest a constant vibration of such an infinite degree of intensity and rapid motion that it may be practically considered as at rest. The teachers directing the attention of the students to the fact that even on the physical plane a rapidly moving object, such as a revolving wheel, seems to be at rest. The teachings are to the effect that spirit is at one end of the pole of vibration, the other pole being certain extremely gross forms of matter. Between these two poles are millions upon millions of different rates and modes of vibration. Modern science has proven that all we call matter and energy are but modes of vibratory motion, and some of the more advanced scientists are rapidly moving towards the position of the occultist, who hold that the phenomena of mind are likewise modes of vibration or motion. Let us see what science has to say regarding the question of vibrations in matter and energy. In the first place, science teaches that all matter manifests in some degree, the vibrations arising from the temperature or heat. Be an object cold or hot, both being degrees of the same thing, it manifests certain heat vibrations and in that sense is in motion and vibration. Then, all particles of matter are in a circular movement from corpuscle to suns. The planets revolve around the suns, and many of them turn on their axes. The suns move around greater central points, and these are believed to move around still greater, and so on ad infinitum. The molecules of which the particular kinds of matter are composed are in a state of constant vibration and movement around each other and against each other. The molecules are composed of atoms, which likewise are in a state of constant movement and vibration. The atoms are composed of corpuscles, sometimes called electrons, ions, etc., which are also in a state of rapid motion, revolving around each other, and which manifest a very rapid state, a mode of vibration. And so we see that all forms of matter manifest vibration, in accordance with the Hermetic principle of vibration. And so it is with the various forms of energy. Science teaches that light, heat, magnetism, and electricity are but forms of vibratory motion, connected in some way with and
probably emanating from the ether. Science does not, as yet, attempt to explain the nature of the phenomenon known as cohesion, which is the principle of molecular attraction, nor chemical affinity, which is the principle of atomic attraction, nor gravitation, the greatest mystery of the three, which is the principle of attraction by which every particle or mass of matter is bound to every other particle or mass. These three forms of energy are not yet understood by science. Yet, the writer is inclined to the opinion that these two are manifestations of some form of vibratory energy, a fact which Hermetists have held and taught for ages past. The universal ether, which is postulated by science without its nature being understood clearly, is held by the Hermetists to be but a higher manifestation of that which is erroneously called matter. That is to say, matter at a higher degree of vibration, and is called by them the ethereal substance. The Hermetists teach that this ethereal substance is of extreme tenuity and elasticity, and pervades universal space, surviving as a medium of transmission of waves of vibratory energy such as heat, light, electricity, magnetism, etc. The teachings are that the ethereal substance is a connecting link between the forms of vibratory energy known as matter on the one hand and energy or force on the other, and also that it manifests a degree of vibration in rate and mode entirely its own. Scientists have offered the illustration of a rapidly moving wheel, top, or cylinder to show the effects of increasing rates of vibration.
The illustration supposes a wheel, top, or revolving cylinder running at a low rate of speed. We will call this revolving thing the object in following out the illustration. And let us suppose the object is moving slowly. It may be seen readily, but no sound of movement reaches the ear. The speed is gradually increased. In a few moments, its movement becomes so rapid that a deep growl or low note may be heard. Then, as the rate is increased, the note rises on the musical scale. Then, the motion being still further increased, the next highest note is distinguished. Then, one after another, all the notes of the musical scale appear, rising higher and higher as the motion is increased. Finally, when the motions have reached a certain rate, the final note perceptible to human ears is reached, and the shrill, piercing shriek dies away, and silence follows. No sound is heard from the revolving object, the rate of motion being so high that the human ear cannot register the vibrations. Then comes the perception of rising degrees of heat. Then, after quite a time, the eye catches a glimpse of the object becoming a dull, dark, reddish color. As the rate increases, the red becomes brighter. Then, as the speed is increased, the red melts into an orange. Then the orange melts into a yellow. Then follow successively the great shades of green, blue, indigo, and finally violet. As the rate of speed increases, then the violet shades away and all the colors disappear, the human eye not being able to register them, but there are invisible rays emanating from the revolving object, the rays that are used in photographing, the other subtle rays of light, then begin to manifest the peculiar rays known as X-rays, etc., and the constitution of the object changes. The electricity and magnetism are emitted when the appropriate rate of vibration is attained. When the object reaches a certain rate of vibration, its molecules disintegrate and resolve themselves into the original elements or atoms. Then the atoms, following the principle of vibration, are separated into the countless corpuscles of which they are composed. And finally, even the corpuscles disappear, and the object may be said to be composed of the ethereal substance. Science does not dare to follow the illustration further, but the Hermetists teach that if the vibrations be continually increased, the object would mount up the successive states of manifestation, and would in turn manifest the various mental stages, and then on spiritward, it would finally re-enter the All, which is absolute spirit. The object, however, would have ceased to be an object long before the stage of ethereal substance was reached. But otherwise, the illustration is correct inasmuch as it shows the effect of constantly increased rates and modes of vibration. It must be remembered in the above illustration that at the stages at which the object throws off vibrations of light, heat, etc., it is not actually resolved into those forms of energy, which are much higher in scale, but simply that it reaches a degree of vibration in which those forms of energy are liberated, in a degree, from the confining influences of its molecules, atoms, and corpuscles, as the case may be. These forms of energy, although much higher in scale than the matter, are imprisoned and confined by the material combinations, by reason of the energies manifesting through and using material forms, and thus becoming entangled and confined in their creations of material forms, which, to an extent, is true of all creations, the creating force becoming involved in its creation. But the Hermetic teachings go much further than do those of modern science. They teach that all manifestation of thought, emotion, reason, will, or desire, or any mental state or condition are accompanied by vibrations, a portion of which are thrown off, and which tend to affect the minds of other persons by induction. This is the principle which produces the phenomena of telepathy, mental influence, and other forms of action and power of mind over mind, with which the general public is rapidly becoming acquainted, owing to the wide dissemination of occult knowledge by the various schools, cults, and teachers along these lines at this time. Every thought, emotion, and mental state has its corresponding rate and mode of vibration, and by an effort of the will of the person and of other persons, these mental states may be reproduced, just as the musical tone may be reproduced by causing an instrument to vibrate at a certain rate, just as color may be reproduced in the same way by a knowledge of the principle of vibration, as applied to mental phenomena. One may polarize his mind at any degree he wishes, thus gaining a perfect control over his mental states, moods, etc. In the same way, he may affect the minds of others, producing the desired mental states in them. In short, he may be able to produce on the mental plane that which science produces on the physical plane, namely, vibrations at will. This power, of course, may be acquired only by the proper instruction, exercises, practices, etc., the science being that of mental transmutation, one of the branches of the Hermetic art. A little reflection on what we have said will show the students that the principle of vibration underlies the wonderful phenomena of the power manifested by the masters and adepts, who were able to apparently set aside the laws of nature, but who, in reality, are simply using one law against another, one principle against others, and who accomplish their results by changing the vibrations of material objects or forms of energy, and thus perform what are commonly called miracles. As one of the old Hermetic writers has truly said, "He who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the scepter of power." And so ends Chapter 9, Vibration. And God is, right? We talk about that all the time. We have said that many times. God is. He is me. He is you. He is the space between me and you, and He is the space between me and you. Well, that particular space, that last one, is what is being discussed in large part at the beginning of this. It is talking about the ether. We have a different term for it now. If you're unaware, it is now called plasma. There is activated plasma, which is called light plasma, and there is deactivated plasma, which is called dark plasma. To the best of my understanding of the science, dark plasma is the void in space. It is unactivated potential is probably the best way to put it. But plasma is the transitionary position between the known elements, right? And so it is just outside of the currently understood elements. It is the making part. And you have the part that is actively making, and you have the part that is potential to be made. The darkness of space, the vast middle part, that still carry satellite waves and light waves and photons. They have to have a medium for transmission. We may not understand it, but it has to be there. To my understanding, that is dark matter. Everything vibrates. We have talked about that before, and it is, again, a truth. Your hand is not solid. You can pick things up because of the power of the atoms in your hand repulsing the powers of whatever it is you're trying to pick up. You can't push your hands into each other for that reason. But they're moving. Every single little bit of this is moving. The skin is constantly growing and stretching in tiny scale and shedding. You get new skin every so often. You get new blood every so often. You get new bone every so often. You get new muscular tissue every so often. Everything inside of you is constantly regenerating as it passes through the medium that is time. And so the transition is constant of you vibrating, but the individual pieces are also vibrating, and that's what's being described in here is the atomic level vibration. For some reason that we do not currently understand, you are held together in the harmonic that is you. I believe that the mechanics of that are to deal with the chakras, right? That each of them serves a specific purpose in the fact that you are where you are in the evolutionary scale. That I don't believe that animals have 8, right? I don't believe that plants have as many as animals do. I think that the different chakras allow different things, and the fact that we have the crown and the third eye and the throat are amazing things that we can voice vibration. Because it's the words that you speak create the toroid in which you live. The power of your voice is the easiest one for you to attain, right? You should be balanced to the bottom part of your stack before you start doing anything more advanced on the higher end, right? Anything past the heart is on the spiritual side. Anything below the heart is on the base side. The heart is the part that melts them together, that allows the manifestation. But your voice is the part that creates the vibration for you. It is the one that you have the easiest access to the vibration for. Most people can speak. It may not be beautiful speech. It may be absolutely harmonious. But regardless, most people can make a sound. They can create the toroid that is their life. They can speak the I am into existence. The I am is the creative force. When you speak, I am a healer, I am a teacher, I am a creator, I am a counselor. All of these things become the reality that in which you live. If you speak negatively in the I am statements, you are creating the negative effect of the I am statements. Your voice is the first access that you have to the actual changing of the vibration of the universe. You've heard about the butterfly effect, right? Butterfly flaps its wing over in China and creates a typhoon over in India. That is the butterfly effect, because this stacks upon this, and these two come together and they create a small wind, and that small wind comes together and it all stacks up, and that is the truth. The things that you speak are the butterfly wings. They are the part that creates the vibration that is your reality. You live in a toroid created by you. Your intentions, your mind, your thought create your reality. Most of the circumstances that you are currently in are because of your thoughts and your actions, the things that you are actively choosing to do. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes that is prior arrangements that you have agreed to before you got here. Most of those are the tough ones, right? The ones that you're choosing here tend to be the happier ones because people choose happiness, but not all the time. Some people are choosing addiction. Some people are choosing depression. Some people are choosing anxiety. Some people are choosing hate. You don't have to. You can create your own timeline. You are already on your own timeline. You can grasp hold of it, but you grasp hold of it by speaking it, by changing the toroid and the vibration of your existence. Do so in accordance with the 8 laws of creation, and you will be just fine. Understanding the I am space statements, which is also in the Infinite Integration playlist, will help you in that. All right, let's dive into Chapter 10. Polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled.
The Kybalion.
The fourth great Hermetic principle, the principle of polarity, embodies the truth that all manifested things have two sides, two aspects, two poles, and a pair of opposites, with manifold degrees between the two extremes. The old paradoxes which have ever perplexed the mind of men are explained by an understanding of this principle. Man has always recognized something akin to this principle, and has endeavored to express it by such sayings, maxims, and aphorisms as the following. Everything is and isn't at the same time. All truths are but half-truths. Every truth is half false. There are two sides to everything. There is a reverse side to every shield, etc., etc. The Hermetic teachings are to the effect that the difference between the things seemingly diametrically opposed to each other is merely a matter of degree. It teaches that the pair of opposites may be reconciled, and that thesis and antithesis are identical in nature, but different in degree, and that the universal reconciliation of opposites is effected by recognition of this principle of polarity. The teachers claim that illustrations of this principle may be had on every hand, and from an examination into the real nature of anything. They begin by showing that spirit and matter are but two poles of the same thing, the intermediate planes being merely degrees of vibration. They show that the all and the many are the same, the difference being merely a matter of degree of mental manifestation. Thus, the law and the laws are two opposites of one thing. Likewise, principle and principles, infinite mind and finite minds. Then, passing on to the physical plane, they illustrate the principle by showing that heat and cold are identical in nature, the differences being merely a matter of degrees. The thermometer shows many degrees of temperature, the lowest pole being called cold and the highest heat. Between these two poles are many degrees of heat or cold. Call them either, and you are equally correct. The higher of the 2 degrees is always warmer, while the lower is always colder, yet there is no absolute standard. All is the matter of degree. There is no absolute standard. All is a matter of degree. This punctuation. There is no place on the thermometer where heat ceases and cold begins. It is all a matter of higher and lower vibrations. The very terms high and low, which we are compelled to use, are but poles of the same thing. The terms are relative. So with east and west. Travel around the world in an eastward direction, and you reach a point which is called west at your starting point, and you return from that westward point. Travel far enough north, and you will find yourself traveling south, or vice versa. Light and darkness are poles of the same thing, and many degrees between them. The musical scale is the same. Starting with C, you move upward until you reach another C, and so on. The differences between the two ends of the board being the same, with many degrees between the two extremes. The scale of color is the same, higher and lower vibrations being the only difference between high violet and low red. Large and small are relative, so are noise and quiet. Hard and soft follow the rule, likewise sharp and dull. Positive and negative are two poles of the same thing, with countless degrees between them. Good and bad are not absolute. We call one end of the scale good and the other bad, or one end good and the other evil, according to the use of terms. A thing is less good than the thing higher on the scale, but that less good thing in turn is more good than the thing next below it, and so on, more or less being regulated to the position on the scale. And so it is on the mental plane. Love and hate are generally regarded as being things diametrically opposed to each other, entirely different, irreconcilable. But we apply the principle of polarity. We find that there is no such thing as absolute love or absolute hate, as distinguished from each other. The two are merely terms applied to the two poles of the same thing. Beginning at any point of the scale, we find more love or less hate as we ascend to the scale, and more hate or less love as we descend. This being true no matter from what point, high or low, we may start. There are degrees of love and hate, and there is a middle point where like and dislike become so faint that it is difficult to distinguish between them. Courage and fear come under the same rule. The pair of opposites exist everywhere. Where you find one thing, you find its opposite, the two poles. And it is this fact that enables the Hermetist to transmute one mental state into another, along the lines of polarization. This belongs to different classes. Things belonging to different classes cannot be transmuted into each other, but things of the same class may be changed. That is, may have their polarity changed. Thus, love never becomes east or west, or red or violet, but it may, and often does, turn into hate. And likewise, hate may be transformed into love by changing its polarity. Courage may be transmuted into fear, and the reverse. Hard things may be rendered soft, dull things become sharp, hot things become cold, and so on. The transmutation always being between things of the same kind, of different degrees. Take a fearful man. By raising his mental vibrations along the line of fear, courage, he can be filled to the highest degree of courage and fearlessness. And likewise, the slothful man may change himself into an active, energetic individual simply by polarizing along the lines of desired quality. The student who is familiar with the processes by which the various schools of mental science, etc., produce changes in the mental states of those following their teachings may not readily understand the principle underlying many of these changes. When, however, the principle of polarity is once grasped, and it is seen that the mental changes are occasioned by a change of polarity, a sliding along the same scale, the hatter is readily understood. The change is not in the nature of a transmutation of one thing into another thing entirely different, but it is merely a change of degree in the same things, a vastly important difference. For instance, borrowing an analogy from the physical plane, it is impossible to change heat into sharpness, loudness, highness, etc., but heat may readily be transmuted into cold, simply by lowering the vibrations. In the same way, hate and love are mutually transmutable, so are fear and courage. But fear cannot be transformed into love, nor can courage be transmuted into hate. The mental states belong to innumerable classes, each class of which has its opposite poles, along which transmutation is possible. The student will readily recognize that in mental states, as well as in the phenomena of the physical plane, the two poles may be classified as positive and negative respectively. Thus, love is positive to hate, courage to fear, activity to non-activity, etc., and etc. It will also be noticed that even to those unfamiliar with the principle of a vibration, the positive pole seems to be of a higher degree than the negative, and readily dominates it. The tendency of nature is in the direction of the dominant activity of the positive pole. In addition to the changing of the poles of one's own mental states by the operation of the art of polarization, the phenomena of mental influence, in its manifold phases, shows us that the principle may be extended so as to embrace the phenomena of the influence of one mind over that of another, of which so much has been written and taught of late years. When it is understood that mental induction is possible, that mental states may be produced by induction from others, then we can readily see how a certain state of vibration or polarization of a certain mental state may be communicated to another person, and his polarity in that class of mental states thus changed. It is along this principle that the results of the many of the mental treatments are obtained. For instance, a person is blue, melancholy, and full of fear. A mental scientist bringing up his own mind up to the desired vibration by his trained will, and thus obtaining the desired polarization in his own case, then produces a similar mental state in the other by induction, the result being that the vibrations are raised, and the person polarizes towards the positive end of the scale instead of towards the negative, and his fear and other negative emotions are transmuted to courage and similar positive mental states. A little study will show you that these mental changes are nearly all along the lines of polarization, the change being one of degree rather than of kind. A knowledge of the existence of this great Hermetic principle will enable the student to better understand his own mental states and those of other people. He will see that these states are all a matter of degree, and seeing thus, he will be able to raise or lower the vibration at will, to change his mental poles, and thus be the master of his mental states, instead of being their servant and slave. And by his knowledge he will be able to aid his fellows intelligently, and by the appropriate methods change the polarity when the same is desirable. We advise all students to familiarize themselves with this principle of polarity, for a correct understanding of the same will throw light on many difficult subjects. And so we end chapter 10, the principle of polarity. And here's the thing. That's right. Existence is a toroid, right? You have your own that you speak. It is the vibration in which you exist, and there is an existence outside of you. You can affect the things outside of you. That is a possibility. It is extremely important that you are aligned with the A laws of creation before any of that. And it should always be 100% consensual. If someone is mentally incapacitated and unable to consent, then you do not do anything. But the toroid that is your existence, you have control over. And it exists within these polarities, right? Within the differences. And love and hate's a good one. Most people don't look at that right. It's love and wrath. It's not hate, right? It is the manifestation of encompassing love and the manifestation of rejecting love. And rejecting love is wrath. I have a whole video that is dedicated to the 7 virtues and 7 vices. And it is a good one to watch because there are 7 virtues and 7 vices. I have not as of yet discovered an 8th one, but generally speaking, it's 7, and then the 8th is the new beginning of the next harmonic. So that is when 7 is okay. 7 is the completion, and 8 is the beginning of the next harmonic. So the 7 definitions, and the 8th one will be the beginning of the first one again, at a different vibrational level with different challenges involved. So you do have control over your toroid. You do have control over your vibration, and the things that control your vibration are your reactions to the virtues and the vices. You are not meant to exclude, right? You are meant to assimilate. The induction should be your own. You should be taking things into yourself intentionally instead of by chance. What do you mean? If you are surrounded by people who are full of negativity, they are speaking things into existence that you don't necessarily align with. If you continue to stay around that, they will enforce that upon you. Your mind will start thinking in the same wheels that their minds do. And so if you want to be separate from that, then you have to be the one speaking the positivity. You have to enforce that type of thing, because they can enforce their will on you. You can enforce your will on others. That is a thing. People underestimate the power of the spoken voice, but the intentionally guided energy that is the spoken voice. Everybody knows sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, and that is not true. Right? Doesn't physically hurt you, but they can scar you pretty good. That is the intentional misuse of the toroid of the voice. That is you using your voice as a weapon, or them using the voice as a weapon against you. And that is real. You can do that. Your voice is not the only vibratory manipulation device that you have. Every single one of your 7 chakras, 8 counting the divine, but the 7 internal ones, you can flex. The flexing of that particular chakra in its physical form creates its own vibratory relationship with things out there. You speaking is creating. You flexing your third eye into the vision that is to be is creating. You seeking the nourishment in your solar plexus and flexing, that is creating the nourishment. Right? The flexing of the individual chakras are the way, another way. Right? I said before that your voice is the easiest way to manipulate your vibrations. The same is true for all of your chakras. And part of the work that we talk about in the Infinite Integration playlist is raising the vibrations in your chakras, right? They are supposed to be aligned to pretty specific hertz, but not exactly specific hertz, because people are different, and so the different vibrations affect people in different ways, but they are pretty close to where they should be. The fundamental harmonics of life will lay them out for you. You can affect the vibration of the different areas, right? The different chakras as they go along, and each one has a specific correlation into the physical realm. The divine, which is known as the Merkaba to some people, that you have access to if you are correctly aligned with all the other 7 and the 8 laws of creation. You have access to the divine, which is the spirit. It is the becoming. It is the third part of the Trinity. You have the meat suit, you have the decider, and you have the part that makes it happen. The part that makes it happen is the divine aura. It is the Merkaba. It is the space around you that is the becoming. All of these things you can flex and move and do in other people. It is possible to change people's minds. It is highly recommended that you do not ever attempt to do any of that. You will suffer the consequences, and I cannot stop that, but I am telling you in no uncertain terms that it is a bad idea to ever try to inflict energetic manipulations on anyone who is not 100% consensual in the act. That includes healing. Do not ever heal somebody who has not given you permission. Definitely do not curse people. Do not inflict emotional or energetic damage upon people. If you choose to do those things, you will suffer the consequences from the law of returns. The squared cube law will kick you in the nuts. It's your choice. You can do it, but I do not recommend it. You can. I'm here for information, right? We're here to give people keys and tools. And the same key that you use to affect change outside of yourself by changing the vibration and connecting the boxes with the jumper cables that we talk about in the manifestation video. If you are doing that, that is the exact same keys, right? Those things are exactly the way that you can affect other people. It is exactly the way that you can protect yourself from affecting other people. And sometimes the karmic effects that will affect you from you trying to energetically harm someone else will be their defenses. Some of us have some pretty strong ones, and you don't want to do it. I promise you that, because those are the worst lashbacks. All of the lashbacks will come. People who are unknowing can't direct the energy back to you, right? You direct that energy to them, and they can't they can't defend themselves. But there are people out here that can. And if you choose the wrong one, you will immediately know it. Immediately. Without a doubt, no hesitation whatsoever. And I'm talking from lived experience. You do not want to try these things. It is bad. We're going to go ahead and start wrapping this one up. I have put some keys in here. I understand that it's still a little bit obscured. We are still going through this. We are only on the blue one. We still have a couple of colors left to go. If you have not paid attention to the colors of the thumbnails, they are there for a reason. We are working through something very much. We are talking about vibrations and the source of vibrations and how to change vibrations in the easiest and most effective manner. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult set of topics. Hopefully I have not given you the keys that you are not ready for. I have to the best of my ability, tried to direct you back over to the 8 laws of creation before you started to do any of these things. It is so vitally important. Like, your view on that one video is maybe a penny. It is not going to make me financially rich if you go back and watch that one video. But if you only watch one video, that is the one to watch, because that is the one that holds the keys to the keys. If you like what I'm doing here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment. Let me know what you agree with. Let me know what you don't agree with. I am here for the conversation as long as you keep it respectful. If you really like what I'm doing here, hit me with the super thanks down below, and it will be greatly appreciated. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. And this has been Pit State. Peace.